In recent years, numerous members of Congress have stepped forward to shed light on the UAP discussion from a bipartisan and legislative perspective. Congressman Tim Burchett, representing the 2nd District of Tennessee, discusses his personal views on the subject matter, including if he's an advocate for leaked government UAP footage. Join us as we get rebelliously curious. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me on Rebelliously Curious today. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I know that you have interest in UFOs, and you've been very vocal about it in the media in recent years, especially this year from what I've seen. I'd like to start off our conversation with, how did you get yourself involved in the UAP topic? And then along with, why are you championing this in Congress?
Well, I've never seen a UFO that I know of. When I was a young boy, back when you could ride your bicycle a couple of miles to the library and you could spend all day there and not be in trouble for it. Not your parents wouldn't be in trouble for letting you do it. They would always have the books set up at the library, and one time I think they had something, UFOs, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster. And so, and I always just took an interest in the unusual and the unknown. And if somebody told me not to do it, that would make me that much more interested. And I read up on it, and I read all the books and the magazines as a kid, and at night I'd go out and hope to see something, never did. But as I got older, I still remained interested in it. And I was crossing the street near the Capitol Hill Club, and there's a guy there from TMZ. I don't know if you know what that is. It's it's kind of the news comedy kind of thing, and they catch people in gas and stuff, and they say stuff, and
right. Unfortunately, I do.
Yes, ma'am. Well, the reporter said, "Hey, what do you think of the UFO report?" And I said, "I think it's a joke. I think it's a cover-up." I said, "More people believe in UFOs than believe in Congress." And I ended up putting that on a T-shirt, and I sell it on my website, oddly enough, that very quote, because that's the truth. And he said, "What about the report?" And I said, "Brother," I said, "that thing," I said, "it'll be so redacted, it'll look like a piece of Swiss cheese." And he's like, "Really?" They said they're going to release. I said, "They're not going to release anything. I mean, they haven't released stuff from the Kennedy files, and everybody's dead from that. Nobody, So anyway, and that got aired, and then all of a sudden people started calling me from all over the country, actually. I mean, Pentagon, you name it, and every organization. And then people started calling me that it had sightings. And some of them I think are false flags. Maybe they're putting somebody up to calling me to get me to run down some rabbit hole. But some of these people they're heroes. I mean, I've had people call me that are veterans that have seen me on the TV show Ancient Aliens and describe very, very credible. I mean, they have nothing. There's no reason for them to call me, and people that I know even, and had very credible sightings and have been told by the CIA or some other alphabet agency to keep their mouth shut. It's national security. And, and every night I tell this story, but it's true. Every night I go out and look at the stars out in the sky, and my dogs always have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So I always just look up at the stars. And I think, wow, a light from those stars, some of that light left there before the time of Christ. And I think, in God's vast universe, I can't imagine that we're it. And I also can't imagine we're the best God could create either. I mean, we probably hold God in pretty low esteem if we think we're the best he could do. And, and the more and more I dig into this, the more and more I see the cover up. And I think transparency is a good thing. I
Is there any
think,
evidence or anything that you've been privy to that would make you believe that this was a government cover up, along with working for the American government?
well, I don't trust government. I've been in government most of my life, ma'am, and I've never
Isn't that kind
trusted
of
it.
ironic, though?
Yeah, but if people like me don't stick in it, it's going to they'll just keep whitewashing. The puppet masters will still keep, pulling the strings. And yeah, they marginalize people like me and make fun of me and try to beat me. And, and I get the little shots over the bow taken at me over the internet. But when people like me don't do something, imagine what else is out there that they cover up. And, I think some of it too, I get myself in trouble when I start saying this, but it doesn't matter. It's the truth. I think some of our members are compromised. You go on these foreign trips, and there's no way in hell these guys need to be going on these trips overseas. They're not our best. They're just the one that kisses up to leadership and gets asked to go on the trip. But, you're sitting in some fancy country in a motel somewhere, and somebody of the opposite sex, or maybe of the same sex, it doesn't matter, flirts with you, and the next thing you know, they're in a motel room and they're compromised. And I think the Russians used to use that. They call it the honeypots. But I think that's some of that too. I think that still goes on.
Do you have evidence of that, though, or is that just your assumption? Because that's a pretty bold statement, saying that, people are getting involved into honeypots. We're using women to persuade.
Maybe men. Maybe they're using men. That's why I said in this day and age, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, there's been some pretty well documented cases of people that are involved with people from foreign countries that are not friendly to us. And it's, and I've talked to members that have verified that. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter either way, but it's a huge issue. People are concerned about it, and it's greed, it's power, it's technology, and it goes right back to power. Who's in charge? And the reverse engineering of some of this foreign material. There's a report that's just out. There's a hearing, not a hearing, but a symposium. There's a fella talking about it. I haven't got to review the whole thing. I think I saw it about 4:00 this morning. I believe I saw part of it.
Do you mean Gary Nolan?
Is that, yeah, I believe that, yeah, where he said I was supposed to get foreign material and then I was blocked. And that's, notice I don't have my shocked face on, because that's just Washington 101, ma'am. Again, I go back to the Kennedy assassination. Why in the hell are they not releasing that, other than they're going to embarrass somebody or some organization, which I suspect we all know what that's about. But this is, if you have some foreign technology or alien technology, as the case may be, and you reverse engineer it, there's an incredible amount of power and there's money involved in that. And, and I think we're just scratching the surface, the very, very tip of the iceberg on this thing. And, that's why the hearing that they had, the open hearing, so-called hearing, I walked out, the press asked me what I thought, and I said, we got hosed. I was supposed to be able to ask a question at that, and I was going to drill them. I was going to wear them out. And I was getting ready.
What were you going to ask, if you mind me asking?
It doesn't matter. I don't even remember now. It was on one of the, I was going to ask about a UFO sighting and I think about those Tic Tac videos and why they weren't being showed. And they showed this lame ass video, somebody took in a cockpit of a jet fighter, and they were using their cell phone to film it. And the guy couldn't even slow the camera down, slow the video down so he could see. Adam Schiff, I don't agree with him in a lot. We're friends, but he asked the best question. He said, what exactly am I looking at? Because they were pointing at a shadow, and there was something that was flying by the cockpit at, whatever Mach speed. And, you had those Tic Tac videos, not TikTok, but Tic Tac, like the candy. If you Google that, I'm sure everybody's seen it. There was a 60 Minutes video that had that on there. And the actual pilot, one of the pilots, I believe, was in the audience, and he had to have fake credentials to get in. They weren't even going to let the guy in. An American pilot, ma'am, best in the world. And they were not even going to let him testify. And, we just got hosed. We got hosed completely. The people that they have in charge of this study or whatever, Hell, they can't even spell UFO. They are awful, and it's just a cover up from top to bottom, and that's why the American public have very little trust in government. We continue to do this on everything, but this is something that to me is, we can handle it. We can handle it. I don't. It's not going to offset my religious beliefs or my thought. I think in the Bible has got UFOs in it as well. The first chapter of Ezekiel, a wheel within a wheel. And granted, the translation's a little off. It was King James version of Aramaic or whatever. I'm not really sure. But anyway,
and I want to actually ask you about that because
okay,
I know that you speak about religion in regards to yourself, but then also connected to this topic as well. Do you follow something called the Collins Elite? Have you ever heard of that before?
I have not, ma'am.
Yeah, so Collins Elite is like a so-called conspiracy theory that said that's within government and a group of people that are in power and that allegedly these things could be technically demonic. When you hear that, then, and you're championing this topic, does that make you rethink the concept of UAP? Because we don't really know what it is, right? We don't know if extraterrestrial. We have no idea. Yeah.
I'll be perfectly blunt to you, ma'am. I'm good with Jesus. If I die right now, I'm going to be right there in heaven with him. And I'll be with my mom and dad and a lot of folks that I know. And I'm not worried about all that. I'm not worried. Demon possession is a reality. I believe in it. It's in the Bible. They cast out demons and they ran into a herd of pigs. And, I believe that is real. And I believe we have demon possession today. I go into that, but that's not what we're here about. But I don't think it is. I don't think it is demon possession. I don't think it's demonic. I think
we don't know. And that is one of those. We don't know. Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I think. I think it is another life form somewhere else.
Now,
where that is, I don't know.
Yeah. And I'd like to actually go back even just outside of this religion. I know we're bumping around a little bit, but I want to go back even just to the political conversation about UAPs, because before, obviously, there's a bipartisan, and then we move into a space where it's becoming pretty political. Do you think that this is a Republicans' conversation about UFOs and not a Democrat?
No, ma'am, I don't. I have Democrat friends that have confided in me as well, that there's it's out there. I get blasted on the internet a lot by a lot of people, but they say, but I like your stance on UFOs and UAPs. So I just don't allow it to be that. I think the cover up goes much deeper, and as long as Republicans and Democrats are fighting, blacks and whites, Jews, Christians, Muslims, what have you, the big boys are still going to be making money. They always seem to be on top, regardless.
We're seeing this, though, as like a very Republican conversation, though. We're seeing that the Republicans publicly and within media are really embracing the UAP topic. We've seen
it's me. It's basically me. There's a couple of
and the interesting part, though, is Ron DeSantis also took $3 million from Robert Bigelow, which is a major UFO supporter and advocate. So
I don't know anything. I can't speak on that.
Yeah, and he's running. Obviously,
I know Governor DeSantis. He's going to be
launching his presidency potentially, right?
Yeah, I know Governor DeSantis. I've spoke with him, and but I did not know his connection to UFOs. So next time I talk to him, I just bring that up. But
he has a very, and I don't know if he does, but he did take money, and it doesn't mean that it is that because he took, $3 million for funding for his own campaign from Robert Bigelow, who is a major advocate for UFOs. It doesn't mean that Ron is, but it's interesting to watch. We're also seeing that politically, we look at misinformation campaigns and people using misinformation within political writings or political strategy. Do you think that moving forward within, looking at presidencies or just looking at anything political, that people are going to start using the UAP topic and narrative within their platform? And what do you think of that?
I don't. I think they'll use it against people like myself. I don't see it as in the mainstream as much. I think it's the people that know about it, and the people that want to talk about it publicly do, and the others. A lot of the conversations I have are very private. very private. People will call me and want to talk off the record and show me things and tell me things that are kept off the record, and I try to do that because their privacy is just that, and I don't want to put them in the spot. So, but yeah, I don't see it entering the Republican or Democrat realm. I mean, I'm a Republican, and most of the people that I talk to about it are Republicans. And that's generally just because that's who I'm with in Washington. But there's several Democrats that are involved in it too, and some of them are on the Intelligence Committee. And frankly, that kind of bothers me. Anybody on the Intelligence Committee dealing with this, because they've had many bites at this apple, and to me, they haven't done anything with it, and they joke about it. And so I don't have a lot of time for that right now.
If you had to put a solution then in forward, and it was your ability to be able to change things around this topic specifically within government, what would you do?
Ma'am, yeah. Talk is cheap. We've got to have somebody on the inside, a whistleblower or somebody, come forward with information. I've talked to pilots who said that they've destroyed evidence, which would be film or some sort, because if they were to bring that back, they would be debriefed, which would probably be a 12-hour interrogation, and they would have their credit and their record blemished because of it. Regardless of the whistleblower protection, I don't buy any of that.
And well, it is saying that it should protect them, right? There are some loopholes within the legislation. There is for sure that we're looking at. It's not, it's not airtight sealed, but they should be protected. And so you don't think that
they should be protected? They should be, and it's in the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. They passed 2023 or 2, I can't remember, whatever. But it's in there. But still, the stigma is still there, and people are not as forthcoming. Somebody's going to have to walk out somewhere, some lab somewhere, with undeniable information, and they're going to have to put it out on the internet before they commit suicide. Because I think this is that serious. I think somebody would.
That's pretty bold. It's
it's the truth. It's the truth, ma'am. You're talking about billions and billions of dollars of technology. I mean, Congress people making 70% return year after year. We vote for a missile defense system for Ukraine, and we wrap the American flag and patriotism around it. So we send them our missile defense system, and then we have to immediately go purchase another missile defense system to replenish our supply. And look at people's stock purchases prior to that. Man, the system's crooked, and people just, that's why they send people like me to Congress to talk about it and do something about it. But we got to have more than me.
You also speak that the tax dollars, looking at American tax dollars, and the UAP connected to it. How do you see American tax dollars connected to it? A narrative that should be bipartisan and should have nothing to do with tax money. How do you roll those two topics into one?
Well, here's
what in your view, right?
Yes, ma'am. And here's what you're already seeing. You're seeing some in the Pentagon will come out and say this thing's total hoax, it's a total joke. Then you'll see the other side. Somebody put out something, I don't know if you saw it, said that it could possibly be a mothership, and it's releasing these smaller ships to go investigate places like the Earth and otherwise. So these are high-ranking officials saying this. What are they doing? They're after tax dollars is all they're doing. They've got the information. They've got the files. Why do they send them redacted? They've got photographs. They've got everything. Release it. That's all they got to do. That's all they got to do. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to wrap a price tag around this, and they're going to have this institute's going to be studying this branch of the government, the Space Force, whatever. They're going to need an additional $1 billion to study this. They don't need to study it, ma'am. They need to release their files. Let us decide. Let the American public decide. But that's government. The Pentagon has not passed since I've been in Congress, I don't think, has not passed an audit. They lose over $1 billion $1 billion with a B. They lose it. And you know what? Nobody questions it. Nobody questions it. There's more people that work at the Department of Defense, more pencil pushers than are in our United States Navy, ma'am. That tells you the machine, the swamp, whatever you want to call it, it's real. And that's what they're after, just the dollars.
So then what's your thoughts on people like Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon that have come forward that were working in a system and working for intel and intelligence that you obviously don't agree with, but they've come forward now and have released this information? What's your views on them? Are they doing this as an inside job? Is that your thoughts on this? Or is it potentially that they're an advocate for this space? Because when I hear somebody working for government, that isn't always just pro. It doesn't mean you always have to be in everything, but it's interesting when you bash Intel, but then you have all these people that have come forward that are part of Intel to help push the narrative, hopefully in a positive light, in a positive way from what we've seen, at least since 2017.
Well, Lewis is a friend of mine. We text, we communicate. I communicated with him this morning, as a matter of fact. I believe there are legitimate people in this, but I believe there's some in there that are just pushing the disinformation. And some of them, ma'am, are pushing, because, with artificial intelligence now, I believe some people are pushing what they believe is truthful information, but it is false.
For sure. 100%. I would agree with you on that. Yeah.
And that goes into the funding mechanism, the crooked nature of what's going of the funding of.
But that also could be foreign adversaries. It doesn't have to be, the American government, right? It could be majority of it is foreign adversaries. We see a lot of disinformation and misinformation coming from other countries, not from.
And to go one step further, what I'm afraid of too is that when we figure out something off this reverse engineering, which is kind of a cool term to use. We figure something out on that, and then and then our adversaries get it. Just like when we developed the atomic bomb, and President Roosevelt had passed away, and President Truman, mentions to Stalin that we have the bomb, and he already knew it because some of Oppenheimer's people or Oppenheimer leaked it to them, and so. I'm really afraid of that as well, that because of our greed and stupidity and short-sightedness. Look, I've looked at the documents at Treasury. Hunter Biden getting $10 million from the communist Chinese and his family for what? Give me a break. This town is crooked. It is broken. It's a trash can. Everybody wants to pick and choose the trash out of it. They need to turn the trash can upside down with a garden hose and clean it all out. It's top to bottom, ma'am. It is dirty and it stinks. It's been that way for a long time. And what I'm saying isn't anything new. It's just most of those guys and gals, either they don't know, they're naive, or they don't have the guts to talk about it.
I'm going to go back to when you were talking about footage and leaks. Are you pro leaks then? Video leaks of UAP footage or anything else that might be whistleblower related and leaking footage rather than going through the system and going through Arrow? If you had to decide which way that would go, would you still believe that the citizens should still be releasing information, or should we still be sending this to Arrow?
I'm not asking people to do espionage. I'm just telling you the only way for that stuff to get out is that's the way it's going to have to get out, because it's not going to get out through government.
But isn't that a national security threat, though?
That's what they wrap it in. Why is it a national security threat to know that we have a foreign entity in our presence, it's not, that's what they wrap it in. They always say this is national. That's what they tell our veterans when they're sitting on a ship in the middle in the late 50s, and they see an aircraft, something over the top of them, over 2 city blocks wide, a circular craft that hovers over them without making any noise, without any kind of heat transfer or anything, and it takes off, and they get back to port, and they're visited by probably CIA, maybe NSA, and they're told, this is national security, never talk about this again. That's what they use, and it's not national security. It's protecting the the cash flow of somebody. And it's wrong, and it's evil, and that's the bottom line. It's greed and it's power, and it has nothing to do with sovereignty or America's keeping America on top. Because these jugheads would sell us out in a heartbeat if they thought they could and get by with it.
I know you speak of like the ET, like in my thoughts, and it doesn't mean always mine always matter, but we don't know what's going on. We have no idea, right? We're trying to figure it out. But this narrative of extraterrestrial is so strong within what how you advocate UFOs. Are you worried though that that in itself is misinformation as well, that leading people, multiple amounts of people into the future or now currently leading them down a road that might not actually be accurate? Like, do you ever consider that outside of just
As
saying, this is extraterrestrial, right? You know,
every phone
is
call
it a
I get,
concern yeah,
yeah,
is that ever a concern for you?
every phone call I get, every message I get, every time I'm walking in Washington and somebody says, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this issue." Every time I'm on an airplane and somebody bends my ear and says, "Hey, something about it," I'm worried. Am I being taped? Am I being recorded? Is this false? Is this a bad actor? I'm always worried about all those things. And that's why I'm very cautious when somebody calls me on the phone or wants to talk to me about it or shows me a picture or wants me to come see something they have in some far remote place. I'm always worried about that every time. Every time. And I'm worried about and frankly, I've been told I need to, by some of these folks, I need to be worried about my safety, but I don't know why. I mean, I'm one of 453 or something. So
What do you mean by that? 453.
congressman,
Right.
congressman, four, how many
Yeah.
is it? 435. Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot.
It's
I'm
okay.
tired. I've
No,
got,
it's
that's my
okay.
number on the baseball team is 435 because I
Is
always
it?
tell them I'm the 435th most powerful member of Congress. So, and I get it. I
So
get it.
what are people like when you're talking to people in Congress outside of any political walls and you're with each other, what are the conversations that you're having with them about UFOs? Like, what are the specifics and what are
There's
they asking you?
there's probably
Like,
a half a dozen of us that actually talk specifically about it. Most of it is just try to humiliate me and make fun of me, and you know, and I get that too. I get it. It's going to be somebody's going to use it against me, and going to say we got, Medicare's going to run out of money. And Burchett's talking about little green men, but we've had 13 documented near misses of our military aircraft. You're talking about an aircraft worth $50 million or more. And we've had a near miss. And we have something in our airspace, our military airspace, that we do not control. And to me, ma'am, that is very important. And that's very chilling that no one seems to care. Or maybe they do care and they're just told not to care publicly.
I think people care. I also think people are concerned that it's foreign adversaries. Why
It's
champion the
not it
UAPs?
cannot be it cannot be a foreign
But
adversary
but
on this.
why not?
Well, if it was China, they would own us. If it was Russia, I mean, do you think Putin would not own Ukraine right now? He would take back the whole former Russian empire. No, ma'am, it is not.
Putin's a lot of talk though,
Well, and I'll tell you
compared
this:
to
it's
what
like,
he has in technology. And we've seen that throughout
well, if
this
he did,
war.
it's like it's everybody. People said that Nazis had UFOs. If the Nazis had UFOs, ma'am, there wouldn't be any Jewish people left on this earth, and we'd all be goose stepping right now because they didn't have it, and they did not have it. And if they did, if they had that technology, they would have won the war, and their that evilness would control this world, which it does not. And we don't. Here's what I think. I think it's like if I went back in the 1800s and took a bunch of cowboys, a Harley Davidson motorcycle, gassed up, I think they would look at it and, eventually one of them might figure out how to get it started. They wouldn't know how to change the spark plugs. They wouldn't know how to refine gasoline. They wouldn't understand the oil in the crankcase. They wouldn't understand how to shift gears. And, they'd be looking and toying with that thing for 100 years. I think that's where we're at with these craft that have been found. I think that's completely where we're at, and we don't understand it. the technology is so advanced. You look at those Tic Tac videos and those pilots talking about it and the G's those things do. I mean, literally the human body would be a catch-up package. There has to be some sort of atmosphere that we do not understand within those. I have had people bring me those videos and explain to me some very prominent people in the world in an off-the-record conversations, away from the Capitol, away from everything. They've come to my house, and I've viewed those videos. There's no heat signature. There is no, there's nothing. There is nothing we have on this earth is capable of that.
So if the government is, if you're not believing in the government to be able to do its job, and for example, NASA coming out with its report soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, if the government and government agencies and not-for-profits attached to them, and private contractors not attached to them, doing the research and looking into the science behind this, and you don't agree with those attached identities, then who should be doing this then? Who should be doing the research when it comes to the science? Because we've seen that in the past.
I think at this point that it's in some sort of corporate control. I think that it's been handed off, and it was so compartmentalized back then that most people in government don't have the direct knowledge. I believe there are files existing somewhere, photos possibly, craft somewhere else. And I think it's so small in the amount of people that actually are in know or compartmentalized. I mean, they tell the president no. Obama, I saw an interview with Obama just a while back, and he said, I want to know about where we've got the little green men. And so they went out and did research and came back and said, they went and did research, ma'am. And that was his words, not, no, we don't have it. No, they went and did research and found out that we did not have it. So do you believe that? Do you trust, these people don't answer to presidents. They don't, but it's going to take somebody of a strong president, not like the one we currently have now, somebody with the willpower to say, no, I don't believe you. I'm cutting off your money. Bring me this information. And that's what it'll take.
I wonder if we're ever going to see that.
I doubt
the fear that I have mainly in this conversation currently right now is because of the divide that we see civilly and in many countries too, not throughout North America, but this conversation becoming part of extremism. Do you see that?
Sure. I mean, the distrust in government, but the far left,
and that does lead to extremist ideals, even though the UAP conversation should technically still be bipartisan. It should always be bipartisan. It shouldn't be political or extreme. But when you're saying distrust within government and distrust, doesn't that create and feed into the narrative of conspiracy theory and QAnon and the rest of extremism?
I don't know what QAnon is. I'm not, and I'm as conservative as they come here in East Tennessee. And I don't look at any websites that tell me how to think and some conspiracy. Every time they call me a QAnon or something, and it's water off a duck's back. I don't buy that. That's an extreme. That's a very limited. That's an internet primarily. You don't hear that down at the barbershop. I'm over at Ball Market number 3 on Western Avenue, and nobody brings up QAnon. I think that's something that they label conservatives with to keep them contained or shut up. And that's like we label some people in the left wing the same way. I just don't get too hung up on all that stuff.
So when we're looking then, within the bill and within like Congress and legislation right now, it's talking about whistleblowers coming forward. And hopefully they will be protected. And there's some vague language around reporting and whatnot. But if you had to choose from what you know of this narrative of people to come forward within government or to speak to government and to testify to government, people like Bob Lazar, for example, who would you choose within this topic that should be testifying? And who do you believe is the most authentic and correct when it comes to the theory of UAP?
I think you'd better get the pilots. You got to get the pilots first and get them out in front of everybody. Let the press talk to them that have seen this, that are on the tapes. One of them is one of our best pilots in the world. I know a guy who knows him, who is one of the best there is. And he's one of the main ones that saw it and talked about it. And it was the military said it didn't exist, and then it was leaked, and then they came back and said those are fake, and then they came back later and said no, in fact those are real. I mean, that's the government you're dealing with. And so, you can take it for what it is, but it's out there. There's enough information out there, and but I don't trust the government to bring anything forward of any substance. It's all going to be just like those bogus hearings they had, and it's going to be doctored, and they're not going to bring forth the real stuff. They're going to bring across something that's very questionable, that nobody even. It was just beyond me, those hearings, that hearing that they had. And then they had one over in the Senate, and everybody was all ginned up about it. It didn't do anything. And, as soon as you come out with something, it'll be denounced, or there'll be a deflection or something else. And that's, you get that bite at the apple, and that's it. It'll be gone.
When you're using this narrative, like within, it's part of your identity right now within media. Was that strategic for you to do that and to use that?
No, ma'am, it wasn't strategic. I was just asked about it, and I said the truth. And a lot of people are upset about it, and a lot of people are glad about it. I didn't set out to be somebody who was the spokesperson for the UFO community. That wasn't. I just think we need to know the truth, and we need transparency, and we're not getting it, and we won't get it, I don't think.
So my last question then to you is, what does the UFO narrative look like in Congress in the future to you?
I think we have a very slim shot at getting some information. I think the best we can do is to keep the talk alive with real scientific data, and keep it out of the hands of the folks that are just trying to kill it. And that's my goal, is to keep the discussion alive, and transparency. I don't think anybody should be afraid of transparency or the truth.
Well, I guess we'll see in the next coming months and years to come where this narrative goes. Thank you so much, Congressman. And as I say to all my guests, thank you so much for being rebelliously curious with me today.
Thank you, ma'am.